Joan is going to hand out the
Got
mic.
some mics here. The three of you are going to share this one.
Okay.
And the three of you are going to share this one. And you're actually number one, and you're number two, and Warren is three. So if you need to turn up the volume, let us know, and we'll come and fiddle with the volume.
And just so everyone understands who's here tonight, we have 6 of our candidates: Art Zimmerman, Bob Levy, Chappie Jones, Rich McCoy, Susan Marshland, and Tim Gildersleeve. Mr. Wong is in Sacramento and could not be with us tonight. So we can start with the first question. I think we discussed how this is going to work. We'll start with you, Art. The first question is a 60-second question. What would you do the same, and what would you do differently from your District 1 predecessors?
Well, probably the number one thing I like that Pete did was the D1 leadership group. That is a fantastic organization, and I think that's, kudos to him. I would continue with that. I think Pete, though, is a little out of touch with what the people want in his district, and I think that's where I'll be different. I will make sure that I'm more touched, more community meetings, and try to reach out. This is a great venue for meetings like this to participate in, and that's why I love that paddles up right away. I like that. Good job. I would be more open to communication with the neighborhood groups. Thanks.
Bob?
Thank you very much. My answer is very similar. I think that what Pete's done an outstanding job is not only with the D1 leadership group, but it's also promoting neighborhood associations. I founded the Easterbrook Neighborhood Association somewhat because Pete helped prompt that. And so I think he's done a great job with the neighborhood associations. He's done a great job with the D1 leadership group. What I do a little differently is I would listen to the constituents a little more so. There's a couple of great examples where he really wasn't in sync with the neighbors, and that was McDonald's drive-through on Bollinger and Mice Park. In both those instances, he was sort of at odds with the neighborhood associations. And so I think I would do a little better job of being in touch with the neighbors.
Chappie?
I just want to echo that as well. Pete has done an amazing job with the D1 leadership group, helping establish neighborhood associations, as well as the work he's done in terms of the structural deficit and pitch reform. I would definitely continue that work that he's done and make sure that that's followed through so that we can get the city's finances under control. As far as what I would do differently, we each have our different styles. And I've actually met with and interacted with several of you in this audience. So my style is collaborative. I want to hear from you. I want to work with you. I want you to be part of the process every step of the way in terms of the decisions that the city makes. So whether it's building out Santana Row, or opening up a street, or opening a park, or closing something, I want the neighborhood and the community to feel like they were part of the process every step of the way.
Rich?
Thank you. I've spent probably the last 5 years or so working with Pete. I'd like to say I'm walking in his footsteps, but I don't wear his shoes. He's done some great things with the D1 leadership group, also some of the area's neighborhood associations. But I have to agree with some of my colleagues here that recently he has almost lost touch with some of the citizens. And myself, last 5 years, I've probably been to 70% of the city council meetings and 95% of the rules committee meetings. And I've seen what goes on. I've seen him talk. I've seen things that he's done and not done. And you can see from my own literature, I have a telephone there because I want to listen to people. You are the people that I work for. You are the people that I would have to respond to. You're the people whose voice needs to be heard at City Hall. And I would make sure I listen to you and say that voice.
Susan?
Thank you. I would do much of the same and keep the library hours that he has, but I would do a little bit more than that. And I also want to compliment their staff. Their staff, if you call them, they get back to you very quickly. You have a resolution. I think that I would definitely maintain that. What would be different about me is that one of my platforms is community building, and we used to have community events at Rainbow Park, and we music, and I like to do that. I heard that from the community, and people would like to see that happen. I also would use technology to have a more increased feedback loop, because sometimes people can't come to City Hall and they have concerns, and we'd be able to address those issues. The other is to cover all of District 1 with neighborhood associations, be available 7 days a week. I would do that. And the other thing is, when I attended a Winchester Ranch meeting early on, I witnessed the council person not standing up for the mobile parks, and I was the first one that stood for them. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, the things that I would say
Sorry, Tim.
are keeping the office hours that Pete has right now. That is very important to me, to have that accessibility, keep that the same. Be as direct as Pete is. I'm very direct. If you get to know me, I'll be even more direct than him, sometimes brutally direct. I liked the disability fair. I definitely want to keep that going. That's near and dear to my heart, since that's something that I work in the field that I work in, picking up disabled and seniors, and definitely the structure of the neighborhood groups. Differences, I'm going to take a very hard line stand on making sure that I listen to voter input. So I really want to put together the neighborhood groups and get votes on what we want on the issues. I definitely have a different stand as far as helping people, the poor, elderly, and disabled. I have a different financial view on taxes and bonds than he does. And I just want to stand for the lower income seniors and disabled. Thank you.
Just before I start.
Could we make a suggestion that you eat the mic when you speak, because some of the people in the back can't hear you? And also, we're suggesting that I know it takes time, but if you could stand up, then they'll see your face better.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go to question number 2. When voting on issues, what will you do if your beliefs conflict with the beliefs of the majority of your constituents? This is a 30-second question.
Very good question. I don't think there's a single answer for that. I would be elected to both lead and to represent the neighborhoods. And so on issues that are really extremely important to the neighbors, and I disagree, I would work with them to the greatest extent possible to see where there's the middle ground. If there's an issue I'm really firmly, strongly in favor of, and the residents don't believe it, I sometimes will have to take that leadership role. Most of the time, I will follow the lead of the neighbors, but not always.
Thank you, Bob. Chappie?
For most things, I'm not an absolutist. I'm looking for solutions to solve problems and address the issues that affect our quality of life. So I would go through the process of taking as much input and information from the residents, from the community, from all the key stakeholders, and process that and make an educated, intelligent decision on what's in the best interest of the community and the city of San Jose. So that's the process that I would go through to make those kind of decisions.
Thank you. Rich?
As I've already stated, you are the people who employ us. We work for you. However, sometimes it requires the people to have information they may not have. A good example was the graffiti on the railroad overpass down there on 280. Why didn't the city do something about it, as everybody said? Well, that property belonged to Southern Pacific, so the city couldn't really do anything. That was the answer to the question. By knowing more, you're able to come up with a better decision. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to change your mind, but at least you have the facts. And I want to listen to you because I'm going to be working for you.
Thank you. Susan?
So on contentious issues, what I also would do, because I'm an educator, I believe in educating people, and you can use the budget platform as a way that how you go out and educate people, because sometimes there's things that you see and some things you like and some things you don't, and I would just use the same approach. Say, for example, if it was transportation, and we know that they're talking about a potential tax, I would bring that out to you and listen to everybody. Look at the short term, long term, and also look at it for San Jose and the region. Thank you.
Tim?
As I've said already, I'm going to take a real hardline stand that the voters are going to be my boss. And as a matter of fact, I've got a little thing here from the IPA year-end report that shows that the voters are at the top of the organizational chart, and I'm going to really take that seriously. But if I disagree with what the voters are saying, I'm going to say to you why I disagree with you, but you're the boss, like the organizational chart shows, so you're going to win out almost every time. Thank you.
Thank you, Art. We're back to you.
Okay, great. Yeah, this is a great question. You know, you're voting for us, and we're representing you, so we're going to try to take, I'm going to try to take a hard line on almost every issue. That whatever you guys want, that's what we're going to do, because you're our boss. You vote us in, and we need to back you up. A lot of us up here are not backed by special interest groups or unions or anything. We're not going to allow those people to creep in and take the vote away from you guys. We'll make sure we back you up. I like last week we were here for the budget meeting, and I like those type of forums, and those are the kind of things we need to continue with to try to get that message out.
Thank you. We'll go to question number 3. Chappie, you will start this off. It's a 60-second question. Traffic congestion is a problem in District 1, not only around Santana Row and Valley Fair, but at all major intersections along Stevens Creek Boulevard. Drivers often have to wait 15 minutes or more to traverse the half-mile stretch on Stevens Creek approaching Winchester. This problem is diminishing our quality of life and causing delays for first responders. Increased development continues to add more traffic to the problem. What steps can the city take to improve traffic flow in this area? 60 seconds.
Actually, I was held up in traffic on my way up here. So I experienced it firsthand. It's a very complex problem. San Jose is going to grow. We have to have a place for our children and grandchildren to live. And with that growth comes traffic. Unless, you know, I'm sure all of you or most of you probably drove here today instead of taking, you know, riding your bicycle or taking public transportation. We live in a car-centric society. So I just wanted to kind of lay that foundation. So we have to expect that as we grow, that the traffic is going to be impacted. Now, what we can do about it, we can do things like have work with our regional partners, because a lot of that traffic is affected by Santa Clara, it's affected by Cupertino. Work with our regional partners to come up with an overarching strategy and plan to address it, as well as working with the transportation department. But each situation, each corner, each intersection is different, and it involves a unique and different solution to the problem.
Thank you. Rich?
No doubt that San Jose has a severe traffic problem. Some intersections are worse than others. We can't go out. The only way we can go, like San Francisco, is up. And so the urban villages are being designed for the 2040 plan to be put in areas. But the problem is, they're going to live over there, they're going to work over there. Forcing them to take public transportation or ride their bikes is not a practicality. We're in California. California was built around the automobile. And it's going to be harder than heck to get the people out of their automobile. And public transportation goes from nowhere to nowhere, so you can't rely on that. So we're going to continue with our cars. The idea of intersection control, maybe some stoplights need to be eliminated. Maybe some of them need to be timed. Maybe some of them need to have no further development. Because if the first responders can't get through them, like happened on Winchester during this Santana Row fire, the fire trucks couldn't get across 280 because of the congestion. And now they want to expand it there. Same thing down here with 280 and Saratoga. How do you respond to those things? How do you make it easy for people to get on and off from where they're going?
Susan?
Yeah, we hear about traffic congestion all the time, but what I want to talk about is that we have a stellar department with the Department of Transportation led by Hans Larson. And what they're doing right now is they actually are studying these problems, and this summer they're opening up the two centers to really look at how they sync some of the traffic lights. But that's happening sometime this summer. I'm not sure if it's June, July, so that would help with alleviation. So now we can use technology to be able to move traffic a little bit faster. The other part is working with regional partners with VTA. We know that the line 23 comes down, and there's going to be some enhancements coming in 2013 with 13 different stops. Areas along Stevens Creek as the Apple campus is developed. So working with VTA and other partners to address that, we should be able to improve it along with what I call the complete streets, where you have more walkable and bikeable areas for people, get people off the roads. Thank you.
Thank you. Tim?
First of all, in my many conversations with people, they have agreed with me that we're overdeveloped. That's just my personal opinion. If the voters don't believe that, then I will do what the voters want, but I believe we are overdeveloped. And I have a concern about this, not only as a resident that lives here, you know, I'm not going to stay here if we continue, if we're going to bring in 400,000 more people. So I want to state that up front. We're not going to be able to, I don't think we can do too much about the traffic currently, except do some traffic studies and come up with some ideas and maybe have some shuttles. But if we're going to continue this path that we're going with urban villages, I really don't honestly think there's much we're going to be able to do about the traffic and congestion that's going to result. This is going to be a byproduct of 400,000 more people coming in. Thank you.
Okay, Art, back to you.
Yeah, traffic sucks. That's the bottom line. And everybody here, I can guarantee you probably drove their car here. You know, everybody drove here. So until we change that mindset to public transit, but that's not going to happen. I like my car. I like driving my car. We're going to have congestion. The underlying issue is that we are a job-poor city. We have more people here inside San Jose at night because people drive back home from their job up the peninsula, up in Fremont. And we really need to get more jobs locally and not have people commuting all the time. That's a big issue. The other thing is, I like what Google has done and Apple has done. They can use the buses to transport large numbers of their employees, and I think that is a great idea. We should promote more of that in the city. And the last thing, I'm looking at the panel and I lost my train of thought.
Well, thank you. I agree with Art. Traffic sucks. I got stuck in traffic for 20 minutes a couple days ago, just trying to get through 2 intersections on Saratoga. I think Saratoga is one of the worst intersections that we have in the city. What we need to do to help resolve some of the traffic problems along Stevens Creek is to, for one thing, get that overpass, that pedestrian overpass from Santana Row to Valley Fair. That should have been put in place long, long ago. We also need to do the traffic studies, make sure the timing of the lights are sequenced correctly. But when you work with all the other jurisdictions like VTA, the county, the other cities to make sure that it's done in a very coordinated fashion. The other thing we need to do is work with the development community, because whenever a development proposal comes in, we need to make sure that developer provides mitigation measures to take care of the traffic impacts they cause. And so that's a real key factor when they put in the developments at the Century 21, is we need to make sure we hold the line with those developers and say, you're paying for the impacts.
Thank you. The next question is a 60-second question. Retirement and salary programs for city employees are underfunded. This has resulted in an additional taxpayer liability of several $million each year in the loss of employees citywide. The city tried to alleviate part of this problem with Measure B. Do you support Measure B, or do you support a different plan to fund city retirement and salary programs? Rich,
I'm the first one to take shots at that.
You're number one.
Measure B was enacted by the voters by 7% margin 4 years ago. That was a good idea at the time. I'm an engineer. I looked at the graphs the mayor had, and it looked good to me. He said, we got to cut costs or else the city's going to go bankrupt. However, as it turned out 4 years later, Measure B has not produced the results 100%. We're losing more officers. We can't even fill the number allocation we have for officers right now. There's 200 short in the city. Hiring more officers is not going to help because we can't even fill the ones we have. Measure B needs to be revisited. People who work as a senior, such as myself, can't live off their retirement. They need to be given a decent amount of money to have a decent living and live in retirement in a way that's comfortable for them and not have to worry about they're going to get a paycheck tomorrow or not, or they're going to pay for medicine, they're going to pay for groceries. They need to be taken care of, and retirement is the answer to that.
Susan?
I support the looking at and tackling the unfunded liabilities. But with Measure B, the problem is there was too many pieces that were added into Measure B, and now we're in a real dilemma where we need possibly what will happen, that will have to come back to the voters. Unfortunately, you know, in 1997, it was 75% of what people were getting instead of, it went up to 90%. So we need to figure out how we go back to the table and figure out how we're going to fund those pieces. The other piece is, right now we have a morale problem. It's not just with police, it's also in other departments. We've lost so many good, talented people with historical data that have left the city of San Jose. So that's the inverse piece of Measure B of the outcome. It's happening in planning. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Jim?
Okay, first of all, let me be blunt and straight. I voted no on Measure B. And the reason I voted no, and I understand that 70% of the people voted yes, but I voted no because of the principle of collective bargaining, of the collective bargaining process. That's the reason why. Not that we don't have a problem, everybody knows that, but you can't violate a collective bargaining process. Not only does it affect union workers if the collective bargaining process goes away, but it affects all other workers too. So I just want to bring up that point why I voted no. We have to revisit Measure B. We need to, we need to go directly to the workers and try to restore relationship between management and the workers, which is very badly damaged right now. That's what we got to do. I think we also got to keep in mind that when we're going to make fiscal decisions, it isn't just about money. There's people behind the money. It's not just about money. There's people that are involved in these fiscal decisions. I am for a tax increase also. Thank you.
Thank you. Back to you, Art.
Boy, 60 seconds for a very tough question. That's very much like everybody else says, Measure B needs to be revisited. I voted yes for Measure B. I thought it was a good idea at the time. The morale in the city with police is terrible right now, and they don't feel like we have their back anymore. And it doesn't matter how many academies, we're adding a third academy, we're not going to get anybody out of that academy to stay here. They're going to other departments. We need to revisit it. And I've done a couple ride-alongs with a couple senior cops, and they tell me they're ready to go back to the table and bargain and discuss it and come up with a happy medium. The 75%, we talked about that a little bit, of the is kind of the standard level of retirement, and what we're currently at is just too low to keep the people we have or attract new people. So we need to make some changes. We need to get back to the table. We need to bargain and make things happen and bring the morale up in the city, because it's not just the police, it's across the board.
Thank you. Tom?
Yes, thank you. We have a serious, we have a serious, structural deficit problem, partially due to the pensions. I think everybody knows that. The staff knows it, the unions know it, everybody knows it. So the real key is getting back to the bargaining table. I have a master's in urban planning. A lot of my friends went into the public sector, and I went into the private sector. I'm now 57 years old, and most of my friends are now retired. And they're often working for going back to fill the positions that we can't keep in San Jose. And we're expecting my friends to live to 90 years old. We're in a situation where people can't be retiring at 55 years old and living to 90 and expect to be able to pay for it. Everybody knows that, but it's not a problem with San Jose alone. It's a problem throughout the entire state. And the real solution is probably going to have to be held at the state level. But San Jose has to get back to the bargaining table with the staff, and everybody knows that, and I think we just need to make sure that happens.
Champion?
10 years ago, over 10 years ago, the city council made promises to the city's employees and to labor that they couldn't keep. And the city was bleeding red ink ever since. Even during the boom times, just forget about the Great Recession, even during the boom times, the city was running a deficit. That is why over 70% of you in the audience voted in favor of Measure B, because it was a solution to that problem. The city was going bankrupt. I support Measure B. I will take the leadership position to continue to support Measure B, but I am flexible to work with the unions, to work with labor, to come up with an alternate solution. Again, I'm not an absolutist. I am focused in on finding solutions. And the solution might be Measure B, the solution might be through negotiations, but the bottom line is finding a solution so that we can address the retirement and pension issue so the city can start to restore the services that have been cut over the last 2 years.
At this point, just let me remind you that we want the audience questions to be submitted in the next 10 minutes. So if you have a question, look for someone with one of these red tags and give it to them so that we can get to those questions after we proceed through the next questions for our candidates. The next question is a two-part question. And Susan, we're going to start with you. Our neighborhood is at the confluence of three proposed urban villages: Stevens Creek, Winchester Boulevard, and Valley Fair Santana Row. Even though Valley Fair Santana Row has been designated as a future urban village, it's currently being built outside of this concept. When planning an urban village, at what point do you feel the surrounding neighborhoods should be involved? This is a 30-second question. Susan, why don't you take a crack at this, and then the second part of this question I'll ask Tim to start.
So I start with the first one?
Yeah,
Okay.
if you'll take this first.
Yeah. So what has to happen, and something that I've also brought to the people, is that we have a plan that has happened in downtown San Jose where they brought the community together to get their input. So what has to happen early on is that you need to have community involvement early on so it can reflect your concerns about traffic and development, and that is something that, thank you.
Tim?
Okay, as I stated, I'm not very happy about the overdevelopment. I'm going to be emphasizing this. This is just me. Like I said, if the voters like this direction, then we continue to go this direction. I'm unhappy. But definitely, I think the problem that began in the first place is there wasn't enough neighborhood input. I say 100% neighborhood input. If you want to continue this direction, we go this direction. If you want to stop it, then we need to revisit the whole plan, and the neighborhood needs to be involved. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, the 2040 plan, and, we come out with a new master plan about every 10 years, and that's our current master plan. And I'm not real big on the urban village concept, and it has to be about a case-by-case basis. We just can't be blanketing any new construction is going to be the urban village concept. We need to make sure that we get tons of input from the neighbors in that neighborhood to make sure that's what they want, and that we have them at the very beginning of the process get their input and their help on developing their neighborhood, and not allow the city hall to always make all the decisions.
Thank you.
Yeah, there are two questions. The first question is, I think we need to take a step back and look at the urban village from the high-level perspective. We want to see piecemeal development going on the Century 21 side, on the Santana Row side, on the Valley Fair side. We need to take the step back and do a specific plan that addresses them all. And I'd like to see things slowed down a little bit with these proposals. The second piece is we need to get the neighbors in at the very, very beginning, because an educated neighborhood is, oh, I'm already done.
If I'm elected to the city council, I will take the leadership role in reaching out to the community. As soon as we get wind of any concept, any development, any idea of doing anything that affects your neighborhood, and I don't mean just people within 300 yards or 300 feet or a half mile, I'm talking about affects the whole community, I will take the leadership to reach out to you and make sure that you're engaged, even if I have to knock on your door and drag you to some of these community meetings. I will take that leadership role.
Thank you. Rich?
Well, I've already spoken about urban villages. They're a great concept. Unfortunately, they don't seem to work because a lot of the units within these urban villages are not affordable by most of the people in San Jose. If you make a minimum wage in San Jose working 40 hours a week, you can't afford one of them. And they're also out in places where people don't work. Santa Clara did a very good job. They built one down along San Tomas Expressway, right next to North San Jose. The people who live there, work in that area. They can walk to work, they can bike to work, they can get to work easy. And that's the main concept of the urban village.
The second part of this question, Tim, relates again to urban villages. How should the city ensure adequate water, sewage, and open space as these urban villages are again being built? This is a 60-second question.
More time.
This is definitely a very complicated one. Again, first of all, we're going to have to take another look at this plan, and that's up to the voters of this district and of San Jose whether we want to take another look at it. I am concerned that when we start talking about these resources that are just mentioned in the questions, I'm definitely concerned about that. More urban villages, more buildings, more people, we're going to need more water, more resources, more firefighters, more police officers, more schools. So we're talking about more resources. You know, if we don't have the revenue, we're going to be in a tight situation. I'd say that it's going to be dicey. Either taxes or we're going to need more revenue coming in from businesses. It's going to be a dicey situation.
Thank you. Art?
Yeah, so, you know, right now we have anybody that's doing a new project, or there's implementation where they have to have open space, so that we currently have that on the books right now. I would like to see that extended out and increased, and more open space, more parks, and they have a credit system where they can buy a park somewhere else. I don't buy that concept. I work with a group called Kaboom, and they try to put a park in within a half mile of every kid out there, and I would like to see us make sure we have that kind of a concept and that kind of a city, so every child has a place to play, and you just can't buy your way out of putting an open space in somewhere because you want to put more units in, and it's a great idea for developers, but not a great idea for the city of San Jose.
Thank you. Bob?
Yeah, I think the interesting thing is trying to find available parkland and open space lands when you're doing this. What's important is we make sure that we follow the letter of the law with the PDO-PIO ordinance, which in essence is the ordinance that says you have to pay or provide 3.5 acres of land for every 1,000 people that are in your development. And you have to work very closely with the developers to make sure that they provide this parkland. The developers play lots of interesting games as far as private open space and using walkways as private open space and so forth. But it's going to take someone that really understands the situation to work with the developers to make sure that they provide open space. The other thing is we're going to have to think outside the box. They're going to have to put a park on top of the parking garages. And do things that are different and creative, because we have limited amount of space we use. And so we have to be able to think a little bit differently than in the future. We need places where people can throw a football and a frisbee and just play, but we also need to provide other types of recreational areas. And we are going to have to think more differently.
Thank you.
In District 1, we have a lack of open space, and the district is already built out. So coming up with creative ideas in terms of open space, parkland, would be very difficult in District 1. If you're talking about developing urban villages in District 1, and again, it's Envision 2040, so it's a vision and a concept, but we're talking about actual practical execution of that. And in District 1, we're going to have a process where we work with the community, we get as much input as possible, and we hold the developers and the property owners accountable in terms of having the resources in place in terms of traffic impact, in terms of infrastructure is not going to have a negative impact on your quality of life as residents that surround those urban villages. So that's a key part of what we need to do.
Rich?
Thank you. We all know right now we're facing a drought. Adding more users of water is only going to make things worse. They've been talking about global warming. The droughts are going to be happening more and more often. Our infrastructure, the supplies of both the water and the sewer are being taxed to their limit. Just in our street last week, they had to have the sewer people come out and do some repairs. These things need to be upgraded as they are, let alone add more capacity to them. So adding more people to the limited open space that we have, which is not a lot out here in D1, because this area was actually developed in the late 50s, early 60s, when they had a different plan. There's not a lot of open space left, so that what you have, you don't want to fill up with apartments in urban villages right now. You want an open space for the kids. You want to be able to get out there and run your dog, let your kids play, and use that open space that we have very limited of.
Thank you. Susan?
So what I'd like to address first is the gray water, using gray water We've heard a lot about that, and the Santa Clara Valley District has, you can get $100 for people to install it. So they talk about in the 2040 about the usage of water, and I think that we need to kind of strengthen that usage, because you can use it on trees and other places. So that would decrease that amount. In the 2040 plan, they also talk about open space. And we know in District 1, we don't have a lot of open space. But there's ways that we can come up with creative ideas. I personally like to see something happen in the Centuries. That would be a perfect place to have a parks place that would be open for families. Already in District 1, we are limited on places for family outings. And there are ways to be able to look at increasing parklands by using private and public partnerships. The city of Chicago is also looking at that, and we also need to have different places for seniors to be able to enjoy. Thank you.
All right, we're back to you with the last of these longer questions. This is a 60-second question. Federal Realty has leased the Century Theater property and intends to develop it. What steps will you take to bring the city, the developer, and the neighboring communities together to create an acceptable development plan for this property? 60 seconds.
Well, I'm glad I get to go first, because I got the best answer for it. Sorry guys. The big issue is that the 1986 Mobile Park Act of California allows you to purchase the mobile home park from the developer, or from whoever currently owns it, along with Title 20 from the state. You have that right. But in almost 30 years, not one mobile park has done so, has been successful in purchasing the property. So I'm going to tell you right now, if I'm voted as city council, I will do whatever I can to make sure that variance does not go through and the mobile park is retained.
Bob?
Great, thank you very much. I'd like to repeat the answer I did a little while ago. I think we need to take that step back and look at the specific plan, put a specific plan in place for the urban village. That's a big part of this urban village, and I'd like to see us plan it in conjunction with the rest of the development proposals that are going to go around here. We do need to provide open space and park lands, but maybe that park land is going to be across the street on one of those parking lots across the street. Federal Realty owns both pieces of property. Well, they have a 99-year lease on this one, but close enough. And so we should be working with Federal on deciding what the overall development should look like. Again, we may want to have one of these pedestrian overpasses here on Winchester as a traffic calming measure. And so I think that the other piece is we need to get the neighbors involved at the very beginning. When you have engaged neighborhood who's educated on all the issues, they're very good partners in the development process.
Chappie?
You know, as I've been listening to the conversation, and we always refer to Santana Row as an urban village, and really Santana Row is unique. It's unique above and beyond any of the other urban village concepts in the city. And I think it's going to take a unique approach to work through the process of making that property work. And that approach is, again, working with the community, working with you, listening to your needs and your concerns and how it's going to impact your life and your quality of life, talking to the developers, talking to the property owners, getting everybody in the room and going through the process, taking all the input in from the developer, the residents, the property owners, and coming up with a plan and a concept that's going to work for everybody. It's going to be compromise that's going to be involved. There's going to be some give and take. But at the end of the day, we can come up with a quality solution that finds common ground and is a win-win for everybody.
Thank you. Mitch?
I was probably at the Winchester Theater when it first opened back in 65, 64. I was also at the last showing they had there. I understand the time and the people have there. It's an emotional thing. It's an icon for San Jose. That whole area being redeveloped is going to create more traffic there. Seniors that live in the Winchester Mobile Home Park live there because they want to spend the rest of their life there. They don't want to have to be kicked out. They don't have to worry about, am I going to be here tomorrow, am I not going to be here tomorrow. Just because they have a mobile home doesn't mean it's mobile. These things are almost permanent, and moving them is not an easy thing if it can't be done at all. So the property should be developed in a way that the people in the area have input on what can be used for. But before any development's done, they should address the traffic problem on Winchester Boulevard. Correct that first. Thank you.
Susan?
So we need to slow down this proposed development. I know that the engines are going really quickly. And I was here at the very first meeting in August outside on the trees when you first talked about how concerned you were. I think you need to, a lot of the people, let me back up, have already worked really hard. And you come up with your top 10. So when you go to the table and you're working with all the different stakeholders that are involved in the surrounding area, that you can say, these are the things that we absolutely want. We don't want to see Olson Road open. We want to have mitigation for traffic. We want to have some resolution for the mobile park. We want to help them be able to find some way to be able to buy that property because it's the only unsubsidized senior housing in District 1. And I think when we start to work together through all these issues and they see how many people in District 1 value the community's support, that we'll be able to compromise and be able to work out a great deal. Thank you.
Tim?
Okay, as I emphasized, I will emphasize again, it appears we need to take another look at this plan in the first place. First of all, as the organizational chart says for the city of San Jose, the voters are going to have the most input. So the first thing I want to do is find out what the neighborhood thinks about what to do with the area. You're the boss. You're on the top of the list. So we get the neighborhood, get the leaders together. Once we've got some sort of consensus about where we want to go, then bring in the developers and the city, which I'll be, of course. Hopefully, and get us together, and then we'll discuss it. But the voters are going to have the highest input. Voters in the area. As for the Century Theater, personally, I'm not too enthused about saving buildings, but we've got a lot of people that want to save the building. Again, the voters are the boss. We're going to save the building. And as far as the mobile home park goes, that's people. Absolutely, no way am I going to vote anything less than a no vote for rezoning. No rezoning. That mobile home park stays. Thank you.
We're now going to progress to yes/no questions, and you all have paddles. The Y is for yes, oddly enough, and the red is for no.
Abstain.
And abstain is like this. But I'd like to have you hold those paddles up high when you make your vote so that everyone in the back can see how you're voting. First question is, in order for the Winchester Ranch Mobile Home Park to be developed, a zoning change will be required. Would you support such a zoning change? Yes or no? The current conversion ordinance, the second question, is the current conversion ordinance for mobile home parks was written in 1986. Do you support a rewriting of the ordinance to clarify it and bring it up to date? Yes or no? The third question is, do you believe developers should be required to mitigate traffic concurrently with their development projects? Yes or no?
That's an easy one, guys.
Yes or no, I guess. The next question is, does the Winchester Ranch Mobile Home Park meet the needs for affordable housing in the urban village concept? Yes or no?
It doesn't, but it should.
The fifth question is, and the last yes or no question, is do you believe that county sheriff's officers should be used to augment the San Jose Police Force in District 1? Yes or no? We're now going to progress to questions that came in from the audience. They've been printed on 3x5 cards by our staff, and this was a 60-second question. It's for is for all of you, and we'll start with you, Bob.
Okay, 60 seconds.
60 seconds. The question is, new technologies enable accurate traffic counts using live video feeds. How will you advocate use of these technologies to help mitigate current traffic problems and use those technologies to hold developers accountable for traffic problems where there are new developments and those new developments will create such traffic problems?
Well, two things here. I'm an avid supporter of technological solutions. I'm an IT project manager, and I can think of all sorts of different technological solutions we can use to help facilitate better ways of doing business within the city. Traffic, as far as traffic is concerned, yes, we should use these technologies as far as having cameras, being able to have back-end systems that can count the cars, identify the lights, be able to time things, have it so that our rapid transit and our emergency vehicles can get through lights quickly. There's a lot of technologies that we should use. And as I mentioned a little while ago, there is a requirement that developers mitigate their impacts to the extent possible, not go well beyond their impacts because that's a legal issue, but the developers have to mitigate the impacts that they make for their specific development. So they should be working with the various agencies, whether it's the city, VTA, et cetera, to make sure those are taken care of, and technology is a great way to do it.
Champy?
I also come out of the technology world, most recently at Apple. So I'm a firm believer in the use of and the benefits of technology, but only if you use it smartly. And for any particular technology, we need to figure out the return on the investment. It's because a lot of these technologies are very expensive, and the benefit that you get from those technologies aren't what people are expecting. So I would definitely go through, again, the process of really understanding the benefits and impacts of that technology. And if the benefits outweigh the cost, then I would be in favor of it. And as far as the developers are concerned, I agree that they should be held accountable in terms of any projects that they do, how that impacts traffic, how that impacts the community. And I will hold each developer accountable and responsible for making sure that anything they do in District 1 is accounted for in terms of the impact it's going to have to the community and your quality of life.
Thank you, Rich.
As a design engineer here in Silicon Valley for the past 40 years, a lot of technology used from day to day now, I helped develop. I had a hand in some form or another. It's early stages. Technology is great, but it's not the solution to everything. Having technology, you have to know how to use it. At this very spot right here, I teach a computer class. People come in there, basic class, oh, I know how to use a computer. Well, turn this one on. They didn't even know how to turn it on. So understanding the technology will allow you to use it more effectively. We have the ability here to say, this is good technology, let's use it. This technology does part of what we want, but doesn't do everything. Get somebody who understands the technology so you don't end up like Oakland's police department with a bunch of radios that don't work because they don't know how to use them. Thank you.
Susan?
So as I mentioned earlier, the Department of Transportation in San Jose is implementing a center this summer to mitigate some of these problems with traffic congestion. So we'll see how that works out. Of course, if there's new technologies, we also want to look at the cost and benefits, because sometimes cities and other people, and even corporations have made mistakes where they implement a certain kind of software and it doesn't succeed. So that's one thing. The other thing that I would stand real steady on is making sure that when there's any new development, that the developers pay the fees that they're supposed to pay. In the city council, even the existing city council has recently in North San Jose did not pay. They decreased some of the traffic mitigation in North San Jose, and so what happens? Who ends up paying for it? We do. They need to be steadfast, and they need to be responsible for that. Thank you.
Tim?
First, something you need to know about me is I am a civil libertarian, and when we begin to talk about cameras, doing surveillance, the hair goes back on the back of my neck. It's not doing that right now. But, so, yeah, if we're talking about any sort of cameras, then I get a little bit concerned. Again, neighborhood input is the thing that matters most. cost benefits, as Chappie mentioned, I think is something we need to take a look at. And holding the developers accountable. Chappie also mentioned that one of the things about being down the line is you get to talk about things that people have already talked about. And we need to prevent the problem in the first place. Let's not create, we just got to take a look at this again. Thank you.
The next question is that came in from the audience is talking about the future of mobile home parks in San Jose. It's a yes/no question. So again, if you'll drag your paddles and be prepared. Mayor Reed, when referring to the mobile home conversion ordinance to staff for study, indicated that he wants the council to be able to refuse to convert mobile homes at all. Do you agree, yes or no? The next question is for Bob Levy. A 60-second question. Bob, the Mercury News endorsed you as they cited your compassion for seniors. I'm concerned that you are not familiar with the mobile home park conversion ordinance and your statements about developing the front 1/3 of the Winchester Ranch Mobile Home Park and closing the main street into a park for a public promenade. These are simply not compassionate or realistic. How do you respond?
Well, first of all, I am very compassionate towards the people in Mobile Home Park. My mom is 92 years old, still lives at home alone, and when last week was her birthday, actually, and on her birthday she got on the bus and she went over the hill to UCLA and took a seminar, and then on the way home she stopped off and took another seminar. So I think, and if she got moved, it would probably kill her. So I have no interest at all in seeing anything happen at Mobile Home Park. As far as my comments about the promenade, that was in reference to the Winchester Mystery House and how important an asset that is to our city. And how what I'd like to see is that parking lot right next to it be moved out and having a pedestrian promenade come through and that be gardens and the parking be back on where they're planning on the urban village. Because I think that's an incredible asset to our city and we want to respect it. And I don't think it's respected to the nature it is now.
Thank you, Bob. This next submission from the audience is a yes/no question in reference to union negotiation. Will you support a more transparent and open negotiation process between the city and unions so that the public can know firsthand how negotiations were conducted? Yes or no?
Absolutely.
Thank you. The next question is for everyone, and we'll start with Chappie. It's a 30-second question. Have you served on any city committees? If so, which ones?
I am currently your commissioner on the San Jose Neighborhoods Commission, representing District 1. I've also served as a commissioner on the Small Business Development Commission, where I was instrumental in actually developing and leading the creation of a small and local business preference ordinance. It's on the books to this day. That's providing opportunities for small businesses here in San Jose to have a preference when they compete for city contracts, as well as serving on numerous other boards and commissions as well.
Thank you. Rich?
Currently, I serve my 4th year on the senior commission. I was appointed by the mayor. I also served as a vice chair. Currently, I'm vice president here on the advisory council of this particular senior center. Both occasions, I authored a letter to the city council and the mayor to save the Winchester Mobile Home Park. And that letter is somebody's out there actually doing something and not talking about it. I'm taking action because I want to save where you live.
Thank you. Susan?
I was appointed to the San Jose Arts Commission, and I also served on the 2010 steering committee for arts and culture in San Jose. I've also been involved with the multicultural events and arts education, and also responsible for Parades and Festival, where we would have the annual 4th of July festival, and I'm glad the Rotary is going to bring back the 4th of July this summer. Thank you.
Tim?
First of all, let me state no, and I do have a lack of experience in this. And the reason for this lack of experience is I'm a very, very blue-collar worker. $76,000 is the median income in San Jose. I'm well below that. I've got to work. I would really like to do more, and I would be, but I do have to work. And please don't use the lack of experience against me, because I do really care about these things. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I don't currently sit on any commissions. I have sat on 2 Parks and Rec commissions in the past. I currently sit as a chairperson for the Boston Valley Athletic League girls golf program, which I developed. There was no girls golf program prior to for public schools at all, and I just saw the need for that and pushed through with the school district. When working with school districts was very difficult to try to get anything new done, and so I sit on a lot of different other committees. None of them are city committees anymore. I have had some experience with city committees.
Thank you. Bob?
Yes, I've sat on maybe 15 committees or commissions. I'm currently chair of the City Parks Commission, and I'm on the Water District's Environmental Advisory Committee. My chairmanship on that just ended a month or 2 ago. I've been on the Planning Commission and chaired that, on the County Parks Commission and chaired that, on the General Plan Advisory Committee for the county, on the Strategic Planning Committee for the Parks, the County Parks Department, lots of other committees and commissions. I'm very active.
Thank you. This next question is for Chappie Jones, a 60-second question. Chappie, when looking at your financial contributions, it looks like 70% of your donations are from outside the Bay Area, and 13% are from out of state. You also have many donations from developers and builders. Can you tell us how your candidacy is important to people outside of San Jose? And why are so many developers supporting you?
Great question. In my 54 years of life, I've maintained relationships with people throughout the country. I have donations from individuals that I've known since I was 2 years old. And during my travels and during my life, I've had these wonderful relationships. So a lot of those donations that you see there are from out of the city or out of the state, or just my network of people that I've met along the way. People that know me, believe in me, and believe in what I'm trying to do. As far as developers are concerned, yes, I have contributions from developers in the business community, but in no way has that impacted my ability to represent you as the citizens in District 1. And a good example of that is my position on the mobile home park. I support the residents there. I'm going to stand behind them 100%, and I'm going to take the leadership position in terms of representing them in the park. And it's more than just having that vote. It's also influencing other city council members to also go along with me.
Thank you, and Chappie, for answering a tough question. The next topic is federal realty, and is again a yes or no question. When the city develops the land where the theaters are, will you stand with us to not open the back streets for access? We do not want people driving in and out of our neighborhoods. Thank you. This next question is a 60-second question for everyone. How important do you think regionalization of services, such as libraries or fire department, are to future service levels, and cost control? This is a 60-second question, and I think, Rich, we're starting with you.
Libraries have suffered a lot in the last few years because of city cutbacks. Unfortunately, they're closed during the hours and the days when people really need them. My suggestion is they look at the hours that the days are open so they'll be able to be there when the people want to use them. Also, there's a tremendous number of volunteers just aching to work to help out the libraries. You don't require a lot of intelligence or degree in libraries to be able to put a book on the shelf. But there's a union issue there. The unions don't want too many volunteers in. Use the volunteers throughout the library system. They're the best thing that can happen. The libraries will be able to stay open longer and be able to offer more services to the people who use the libraries.
Thank you. Susan?
Hi. People have brought this up, and I'm not I haven't really had a lot of opportunity to really to look at the analysis to see whether it's really cost effective. And the reason why I say that is because, you know, neighborhoods are different, and the likes and the preferences are changed from, even in just in West San Jose, from different areas, or in San Jose. So I'm not sure how that would work at a regional level. I would need to have further information to be able to give you a truthful answer. I don't like giving answers to things that I have not researched. So I would have to defer and be able to get back to you with a truthful answer. Thank you.
Tim?
And I'm with Susan on that one. This isn't an area that I've seen any statistics on, but I will say this: regionalization of these services may be necessitated by the increased growth if we do go the direction of the urban villages. So what I'd have to say is that, like I said, I haven't seen any statistics how it will be done, but if we continue to go the direction we're going, it may be that we're going to have to do this just as a necessity. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, I like the volunteer concept with the libraries. I think we should have a head librarian, and then the rest should be all volunteers, and expand the hours. Calabasas Library was rebuilt and sat fallow for years with nobody in it, and it was kids need to have someplace to go after school, and that helps with safety issues. The other issue is response time on our fire department right now, especially in D1, is really, really poor. I was at the West San Tomas Neighborhood Association last week, and they were talking about how it's down to 8 minutes now on some of the response times in D1, which is way past the norm. 8 minutes is a long time, and so we may have to reach out and work with Santa Clara County Fire to get additional coverage on a lot of stuff, especially the west end of the city. That's just way too long for them to be able to respond.
Thank you, Bob.
When you drive down Stevens Street, you drive through Cupertino and San Jose and then Santa Clara. We already live in a regional world, and we need to coordinate from a regional perspective. You know, our city streets needs to work with their city streets, needs to work with VTA. The same is true with emergency vehicles. Our daughter choked and almost died. If they didn't get there in 2-3 minutes, our daughter wouldn't be in college right now. And so if we have a fire station that's close to a house and the other ones are busy, then yes, we should be able to have a regional dispatch. I think it's really important that we collaborate as jurisdictions. We collaborate with school districts in providing parklands, so we can, because District 1 has the least amount of parkland for any district in the city, and we need to work with the school districts and joint use agreements to be able to provide for parkland. So doing it from a regional perspective in collaboration with the other jurisdictions, I think, is critical to successful services.
Thank you, Chappie.
Again, I'm a pragmatist. And so when I look at a regional solution, I look at what makes sense. Does it make sense if you have a house that's across the street from, say, a Santa Clara fire station, and that fire truck does not roll to your house and get there in 2 minutes? So for regional solutions that make sense, I'm in favor of it. For solutions that don't make sense or don't work, I'm not in favor of it. So it really is a case-by-case situation. And I can use a specific example. So I live in that part of San Jose that's right between Cupertino and Saratoga. So I see the sheriff's department roll through my area, my neighborhood, to go from one city to the next. That's a regional resource that could be used to patrol our streets, our neighborhoods as well, to look out for speeders or criminal activity that is not being utilized now. That's an area where it makes sense. So it's really a case-by-case situation. When it makes sense, we'll do it, and when it doesn't make sense, we won't do it.
This next question is a Winchester Orchard Neighborhood Association question. It's a 30-second question for each of you. How will you advocate for and assist the Winchester Orchard Neighborhood Association with steering reasonable growth? And we're starting with, where are we starting? Susan, it's your turn.
Could you please repeat the question,
Sure.
please?
How will you advocate
And clarify, please.
How will you advocate for and assist the Winchester Orchard Neighborhood Association with steering reasonable growth? I think the question is, how can we go about providing for reasonable growth in this area?
Well, I think I've already done that and have been a resource to the Winchester Neighborhood Association by bringing in experts that are looking at urban villages and how to help assist them with some of the potential planned growth that will be occurring in this area. And I would continue to be a resource and bring in other stakeholders to help them organize and be able to reach out to the community and plan. Thank you.
You're doing a great job.
Okay, again, this
Hard to stay
boils
awake,
down,
right?
we're always getting back to this issue. This is a plan that's in place, and again, it's going to boil down, we're going to have to take another look at the plan as residents here. So that's really the issue as I see. We've got to take another look at the whole development scheme in the area, and if we don't want this as a neighborhood, then we've got to say no to it.
All right.
I stated before that I'm really against the mobile park having any kind of change to it. And if I'm in city council, I'll make sure that variance doesn't get pushed through. At least that'll be one vote against it. Development is like, we really have to worry about traffic. And if we're just not talking about the Winchester area, every area we have the urban concept, we really need to make sure we do a case-by-case study on that stuff and study the traffic patterns.
The urban village along Stevens Creek could have significant traffic impacts on the neighborhood. And so I think it's really important that the neighborhood is brought into the process at the very beginning, when we first start talking about the urban village there. And whenever there's a development proposal, the first people who should be notified are the neighbors, and the neighbors should be able to understand what's going on. As a council member, my staff will be available all the time to help, and I'd also help facilitate bringing in experts to help out with understanding the situation. So I said a minute ago.
Thank you, Bob.
Maybe next time.
A key to this is, obviously, we talk about getting the neighborhood and community input, listening to you, hearing your needs. So we already know that needs to take place. But the other key piece of that too is that as a city councilman for District 1, it's one vote on the council. So it's that leadership ability, the skills that I bring, the skills that I have in my toolbox in terms of motivating, inspiring, influencing people to go along with my vision and purpose is the key to how I'm going to be able to support and enhance the quality of life in this area.
Thank you, Rich.
Something that our moderator said a few questions ago, when the city develops it, it's not a done deal yet. The city has not stepped forward to do anything about this. The urban village concept can coexist with the mobile home park, perhaps of a smaller scale, perhaps in another location. But first of all, they have to look at the people involved in it and what's going to happen to them. Right now, if these people have to leave this mobile home park, there's no place for them to go here in San Jose. They're going to end up way out in the valley someplace, and they might not even be able to afford it. So we want to make sure they have the input.
Thank you. This next question is for everyone. It's a 30-second question, and it has to do with the development, the potential development of the Century Theaters, where the traffic problems are severe. And the question is, why are we allowing, or why would we potentially allow more building and housing where those theaters are presently located? This is a 30-second question. I guess we start with Tim.
Okay, I think we've all kind of answered this again, so let me reiterate kind of my position on this. I personally am not a big proponent in saving buildings, but I know that the people here are want this Century saved. That's job number one. We're going to save the Century. Number two, once again, we got to take another look at the plan. So we're going to save this Century Theater because the residents want to save it. That's the reason why. Not that I agree with it, but we're going to save it. And number two, again, take a look at the plan. Thank you.
All right.
I don't
don't think the Century Theater was part of the question, but I'm going to answer that part of it anyway. I really like the Century 21 Theater. I grew up here. I've been a lifelong resident. San Jose is my hometown, and I would like to see the 21 Theater to stay. I really would. There's no way we can do another Santana Row across the street on Winchester and Cedar Street Boulevard. There's just no way we can do that. The traffic will be crazy there. And before we even think about doing something like that, we need to really find some other kind of transportation.
Thank you, Art.
Great. The question was, why are we developing there and potentially causing greater impacts? I think we really need to take that step back a little bit and say, it's not only here, it's why are we developing these low-density things like the Century Theaters and adding more density to them? And that is because the city has to develop, because we're the heart of the Silicon Valley, and we're going to develop a little bit. We have to, for our economic engine, we have to provide housing for our children, and so this is one of those areas that has been designated to have more development. We have to do whatever we can to mitigate the traffic impacts, but that's the general idea.
Nothing should happen with any of these sites until there's a clear plan in terms of how it's going to impact traffic, how it's going to impact Winchester, and that plan needs to be laid out and presented to the residents that are going to be impacted by that, and it needs to go through the process. Again, it could be a workable solution, it could involve compromise, but unless there's a clear, specific plan and mitigation on the impact to traffic, then nothing should move forward.
The removal of the Century 21 Theater not only affects that particular area, but the homes and the people and the residents around it. They want to put streets through, they want to put more traffic. People are going to avoid Winchester by going to the back roads, just like they do in my neighborhood. They avoid Saratoga Avenue, they take the back roads. We needed some traffic calming devices, we got stop signs put in. Moving or closing or you're doing something with the Century 21 Theater is not going to solve the problem. All it's going to do is move it from one location to another.
The question had to do with traffic, so I'm against opening up Olson Road. But the other thing is I wanted to say, having walked back behind the Winchester, behind the Centuries, is what's really beautiful and breathtaking is to be able to see the hills from on the street below. And so whatever happens there, and we don't know, I think it has to be conducive, it has to match the neighborhood, because we have a lot of beautiful homes that are back there, and it should work together.
Thank you. This next question is a 30-second question, and has to do with traffic. One of my favorite subjects. What is the possibility of pedestrian overcrossings on Stephen Creek and Winchester? Pedestrians crossing from one shopping center to another creates lots of congestion, and such pedestrian overcrossings would help eliminate this. Could you speak, each of you, to that question of the practicality of pedestrian overcrossings? Eric, I think you're first.
Yeah, I won't use my 30 seconds, that's for sure. Yeah, we definitely have to have those put in. And when you're traveling through Santana Row on Stevens Creek, especially on any given afternoon, the traffic is horrendous there. We've got to be able to have the traffic pass through there. We've got to have those pedestrian overpasses.
I think that was one of our great mistakes when Santana Row first went in, that we didn't get that pedestrian overpass there. And that's one of the reasons I'm really promoting taking the step back and taking our time and looking at the urban village from the holistic perspective, so that we can get the developers to say, here's an impact that you need to mitigate. Possibly one that goes over to Valley Fair, another one possibly between the two federal properties. I think that's critical, and to provide pedestrian access and make these. Thank you.
Thank you. Happy?
Definitely, pedestrian overcrossing was a missed opportunity. It didn't take place, it didn't happen. It should have, and it's impacting traffic flow on Stevens Creek Boulevard. Again, we go back to the need, the cost, and the benefit. to build something like that would be very expensive. And now, I'm not saying it's not worth the cost, but we need to understand what the impact is in terms of cost. Can the city afford to do it? And then make that decision to move forward. If it's something that does have a cost benefit, I would fight for it to happen.
Rich?
When these areas were developed, they didn't have the traffic problem we have now. Pedestrian overcrosses work. They work in Las Vegas. If you've been down there lately, you've seen how they work. The traffic goes right on through, the people walk over, they stop, they wave the card. It cost money, and at the time the areas were developed, that was not part of the plan. It should be part of any new plan. The traffic should be allowed to flow through evenly and unstopped. The pedestrians should be able to get from point A to point B without any obstructions.
Thank you.
I don't want to bring up trying to get through there at Christmas time because we know how difficult that is. But definitely we should really look and negotiate with the developers to see if that's a possibility, the cost benefit, if it's feasible to do it. You always see people standing there trying to cross, and I think it would be an added benefit to, especially for people to walk, because what do you want people to park and not drive their cars and not drive back and forth between both parking lots, right? Thank you.
Thank you.
In concept, it's an excellent idea, but again, we have to look at the cost, do the cost and the benefit analysis. And again, as already mentioned, it needs to be included in any new plans. Definitely I'm for it in concept, but again, we have to look at the nuts and bolts of how it's going to work out.
This next question is the last question we're going to have this evening for this forum. It came in from the audience. I hear you all and appreciate the idea of you standing with your constituents. What do you consider the top 2 or 3 issues affecting our district? What are your own views on those? And how do you propose to get your position heard and followed up by the rest of the council? In 60 seconds.
All right. I think the biggest issue is the fiscal stability of the city and be able to provide for our resources on a sustainable basis. And that and everything else sort of flows from that. Our inability to hire police officers, our staff members leaving, low morale within our departments. And so I think what we need to do is make sure we understand what we can do from a long-term fiscal perspective. The second item is I think we need parkland in our district. We are, like I said a minute ago, we have the least amount of parkland per capita of any of the other districts. And so what we need to do is work very closely with our developers, with the Moreland School District, and with others to be able to provide for parkland. So the 2 issues are, the fiscal stability and being able to get higher police officers so we have safe streets, and to be able to maintain our current assets, which I have 15 seconds, so I'll talk about that for a second. We have a $900 million backlog on asset maintenance. And so we're gonna have a very difficult time being able to do that in the future. And so again, we need to make sure that we get the jobs here so we can get the revenue to provide services.
Thank you. Chappie?
The biggest issue is fiscal reform. Because of budget deficits, we've seen the impact it's had on our services. So when we talk about we want our streets repaired, when we talk about we want more police, we talk about we want faster response times, all of those things were impacted by the structural deficit. We need to make sure that that is fixed once and for all, and that we can use the money, the savings from the fiscal reforms to plow back into repairing our roads, to hiring more police officers, paying them more money. That's the number one thing that I want to focus in on. And then the second piece of that is economic growth and development. I'm bringing 25 years of experience in terms of working in corporate America, in terms of running a small business, in terms of understanding why a business would even want to come to San Jose to grow and expand. And through that economic growth and development, it's going to generate more revenue. And through that, with that additional revenue, it's going to pay for all those additional services that we're demanding. So those would be the 2 pieces that I focus in on.
Rich?
The biggest issue on everybody's lips is public safety. Right now, we're approximately 200 officers short, and we need to fill those before we can worry about hiring even more. That is why when you have a break-in, you don't get an officer out there. You fill out a report online or you do it by mail. Want to do something about that. Also balance the budget. Let's take the money we have and use it wisely. Let's spend it right. Let's look at where we can most effectively and most efficiently use the money. San Jose is a bedroom community. It's going to be very tough to get business in here that produce revenue. Why? Because it's hard to do business in San Jose. Make it easier for these companies. We've lost big business because they've gone to other cities. They've gone to other states. We need them in San Jose. We need to be like Cupertino and Apple. There would not be a Cupertino if there wasn't an Apple. We need to get some of those people here in San Jose to generate the revenue. Then we can get things done more.
Susan?
So the question had to do with District 1, so my first priority would be for public safety. And we know also part of that there's an inverse relationship with public safety and jobs. So now we see the economy starting to get better. You see the rate is going a little bit, starting to decrease a little bit. But there are a lot of young people that there are a lot of opportunities that are missed. We do a lot for the creative workforce, but we don't do a lot for the people that need to work with their hands. And that's something that I would bring to the table. The other part that I hear about from District 1 is safe streets and the traffic congestion, especially around the schools. I really advocate for slowing down around the schools. Parents are concerned. You hear a lot about that from people. I support the safe routes to schools. We have a walk and roll program that, especially in the Moreland School District, where kids are able to walk with a parent safely to school, and that's going to be expanded more so in District 1. So thank you very much.
Tim?
First of all, I don't think I've seen any statistics that say what D1 residents' top 3 desires are, so I'd love to see some sort of survey on that. But let's know that everybody is concerned about public safety. 3 parts to that. Number 1, as I mentioned, I am for increasing taxes. Number 2, I actually like the idea of putting the charter increase up to vote, because that's up to the voters. If public safety is that big of an issue, then the voters need to decide if you really want more of a fixed amount going to that. Number 3, prevention. We need to support families, make sure they stay together, because that's where the trouble begins, and also address income inequality now. 2, we need to address income inequality in the district and what's going to happen with the growth of seniors will be on fixed incomes. And 3, I'd just like to talk about something that we could have a vision of, getting a community center that's like over there on Bascom Avenue here in this district. Thank you.
All right, we started with you, we're finishing with you.
Yeah, so safety's on everyone's mind, and the infrastructure of the roads and all those things are the top priority, but the number one thing we need to do is get our city financially stable and get more jobs here. We produce about $139 per person in taxes, where other cities like Palo Alto, Cupertino is almost $400 per resident. And that's why they can afford to pay for more of the infrastructure stuff, nicer roads, more cops, things like that. So we need to work on that and get our city job healthy and not be such a bedroom community. We need more jobs in the city. We need people here that'll help cut down on traffic if they're not traveling up and down the peninsula. But the second part of that question was, that I don't think anybody addresses, how is I going to get city council to help work with me on that? Well, the number one thing I do in all the things all the different boards I'm on, is I bring people together to work on a common cause. And I can do that. I can get city council together to work on a common cause and move forward on things that need to be done.
I want to thank all of you candidates for your participation tonight. Paul could not be with us because he's in the assembly in Sacramento. And now, Daphne, it's up to you.
So I want to thank you. We're not doing your closing statements because we just gave you a 60-second instead of a 30-second. I know you're thinking confused. But here's the good part. If you want to stay after and ask the candidates questions and would like to hear any more from them, I'm sure they'll be happy to answer any of your questions in their campaign materials. Some of them have put it on the back table, and please feel free to take that. I want to do 2 things very quickly. I want to thank the Winchester Ranch Mobile Home Association, because they, in concert with us, put together this wonderful program, and the 2 people that really ran it, Susan Norris and Jenna Johnson, are right there. up tonight, you probably should vote on June 3rd, or if you have your mail-in ballots, you can go ahead, because I believe this is the last D1 council forum, right? There's one more?
One more.
Well, if you don't plan on going to that one, then you can vote now if you have a mail-in ballot. I want to remind you of two other things. One is the next really important city meeting is the city council meeting on June 10th, where the Century 21 status for local landmark status will come up. We need people in the seats for that meeting on June 10th. If you want to ride, please contact someone in our organization. The next big meeting in the city for Winchester Ranch will be in August. It's a city council meeting. We'll get you the date, but this has to do with the general plan and the inclusion of the mobile home park ordinance and the possible changing of that ordinance during that time. Also, I want to encourage you to donate to the Winchester Orchard Neighborhood Association. There are flyers on the back table. It helps pay for meetings like this and a myriad of other things that we are doing. I want to thank the city council candidates. It was very eye-opening listening to all of you, and I hope that you've gotten good information and you will remember to vote. Thank you so much.